It was a busy week filled with slap shots and block shots and people who like to raise their arms.
Gilpin for three, and it's good.
Welcome to another edition of Royal Recap. I'm Sports Information Director Dale Eng, bringing you highlights from the last week of Bethel University athletics. Let's get started with the men's hockey team as they were in action last Tuesday against nationally ranked UW River Falls at the Schwann Super Rink in Blaine. The Falcons put 2 goals on the scoreboard before the Royals were able to answer with one of their own halfway through the second period. Jake Kalajas scored his 5th goal of the season with the help of fellow newcomers Jack Paul and John Kraus. The 3 of them are already making an impact on the team as they are all in the top 6 of freshman scorers among MIAC players. Later in the second period, River Falls pushed their lead back out to 2 goals, but less than a minute later, Josh Simi pulled Bethel back within 1 heading into the third period with this goal. Unfortunately, the Falcons dashed any comeback hopes of the Royals with a pair of goals late in the game to hand Bethel a 5-2 loss. On Friday, the Royals traveled to Moorhead to take on the Concordia Cobbers in a 2-game conference series. Concordia took a 1-0 lead early in the first period, bringing us to the third period. That's when the Cobbers went up 2-0 on a power play. Later in the period, Bethel got a goal from Christian Fogarty, his 3rd of the season, cutting the Cobber lead in half. But Concordia struck again with less than 5 minutes remaining and then added an empty net goal in a 4-1 win. On Saturday afternoon, Bethel and Concordia faced off against each other again in another defensive battle. Bethel's Stefan Hansen broke a scoreless tie with this goal, assisted by Jake Irie. However, Bethel's celebration was short-lived. 3 minutes later, Concordia tied the game at 1 apiece, which is where the game would stay for the remainder of regulation. With a minute and a half left in overtime, Mason Swenson helps Bethel win with this shot, making it the second time in 3 weeks that the sophomore has provided overtime heroics, and the Royals split the series with the Cobbers by winning 2-1. Bethel is now 4-7 overall and 4-2 in the MIAC. The Royals will have a nice break before returning to the ice the first week of January against Northland College. In women's hockey, Bethel was at home to take on Concordia as well. Less than 3 minutes into the game, the Royals took a 1-0 lead when Allison Papko was credited with a goal. And then at 6 minutes into the game, Anna Carlson put Bethel up 2-0 with this slap shot. Concordia returned the favor at the 7-minute mark to make the score 2-1, and then the Cobbers needed just 57 seconds into the second period to tie the game at 2, which is where the game would stay until the 13:34 mark in the third period. That's when Paige Lemieux goes from one end of the rink to the other and goes top shelf to put Bethel up 3-2.
I don't know, I just kind of barely beat the defense. I mean, my whole theory the whole night was just get the puck to the net, just kind of beat her blocker side, trickled in, and made it.
The Royals played solid defense the rest of the game, allowing goalie Jess Newstrom to earn her first collegiate victory. The next day, the Royals and Cobbers faced off again. Bethel took a 1-0 lead 6 minutes into the first period when Jenna Bullock, the lone senior on the Royals team, scored with the help of Missy Vavra and Stephanie Van Gilder. Unfortunately, the Cobbers tied the game in the second period and scored with 21 seconds remaining in the third for a 2-1 win. Bethel is now 1-3 in the conference after last weekend's games. They will have 2 games this weekend against St. Benedict. Moving on to men's basketball, Bethel opened up their conference season with a game against St. John's last Wednesday. The Royals had a lead through most of the first half before the Johnnies came back to take a 10-point halftime lead. Bethel pulled within 1 at 40-39 with this jumper by Greg Meyer, but then the Johnnies responded by going on a 12-2 run. Daniel Baugh trimmed the Johnny lead back down to 3 with this 3-pointer with under a minute left to play. St. John's made 5 out of their last 6 free throws to seal the victory. On Saturday, the Royals traveled down to St. Mary's to take on the Cardinals. The 2 teams played an even first 5 minutes. Then the Cardinals pulled away for good, leading by as many as 20 in a 76-61 loss for Bethel. Here we see Chris Vavra score 3 of his 21 points, which was the game's high for both teams. Finally, on Monday, the Royals were still looking for their first MIAC win of the season when McAllister came to visit. Bethel made it rain in the first half by going 7 for 9 from behind the arc. Here, Greg Meyer makes one of his 3 3-pointers, and he would go on to finish with 14 points off of 5 for 6 shooting from the floor. Bethel took a 39-26 halftime lead and stayed ahead for the remainder of the game to win by a score of 73-55. The Royals will play Crown College on Thursday before returning home to play against Martin Luther College on Saturday at 3. On the women's side, Bethel had a tough week, starting with a game against St. Benedict last Wednesday. The Royals led by 2 at halftime before the Blazers came back to win 60-45. Taylor Sheely led the Royals with 14 points.
We came out strong in the first half. We moved the ball around a lot more than we usually do. Whereas when we get behind, we look for quicker shots, and that's usually where we turn the ball over. So I think that was like our strongest thing in the first half, was waiting for our shot.
On Saturday, Bethel played against St. Mary's and played a back-and-forth battle all game. Here, freshman Amy Werner hits this jumper to help Bethel take a 26-25 halftime lead. Cardinals came back and led by 4 with less than a minute left to play before Scotty Motes tied the game for the 13th time with this putback. Unfortunately, Cardinals made a three-pointer with less than 20 seconds remaining, and Kristen Walters was unable to answer for the Royals as they lost in heartbreaking fashion, 58-55. Bethel tried to get their first win of the season on Monday against McAllister, but was unable to do so. The two teams played a streaky first half. The Royals used a 9-2 run to pull within 2 points at 31-29 at the half. In the second half, the Royals tied it up right away with a jumper by Taylor Sheely, but then encountered a drought where they made just 1 field goal in 10 minutes of game time, allowing the Scots to pull away and win 60-47. Bethel will play against St. Catherine this week on Wednesday for their only game. Finally, football seniors Tim Cornish and Joel Quick participated in the inaugural Division III Senior Classic out in Salem, Virginia last weekend. Cornish picked off a pass and Quick caught one for big yardage in the North versus South game that North won 14-0. That's it for this week's edition of Royal Recap. Next week, I'll be back with more men's and women's basketball highlights, as well as some from women's hockey. And as always, for more stats, stories, and schedules, be sure to check out athletics.bethel.edu. Thanks for watching. I'm Sports Information Director Dale Eng.